Hi there, and welcome everybody to the May 4th, or maybe I should say, May the Force be with you edition of Builder Town Hall. I am Princess Leia. Okay, I'm Meredith Oliver, leader of the Rebel Alliance. No, host of Builder Town Hall, here to guide you today and arm you with enough motivation, inspiration, so that you can meet all of the challenges of this incredible, crazy, insane economy in this galaxy and beyond, and overcome all of those obstacles. All of the silliness aside, I am Meredith Oliver, and I'm thrilled to be here and to be your host of Builder Town Hall. We take your participation in this event very seriously, and we are just honored that you would take your time to be here and be with us today. I've got a few announcements, and then I'm going to give you our agenda, and then we're going to get right to the comment. As you're coming in, please go to the chat, tell us your name, what builder you're with, and what market you're out of. Say hello to everyone so that our panelists can see who's here and who they're going to be talking to today, because we definitely want to hear from you and hear who you are and where you're from. You can use the chat to ask questions today, or you can use the Q&A panel. Either one doesn't matter to us, but please, Builder Town Hall is known for being incredibly interactive, so we want a lot of questions and dialogue. Okay. Meredith Communications is the host of this particular event, Builder Town Hall, as well as the Home Builder Growth Summit. That's our annual virtual summit. Meredith Communications, we do marketing for home builders. We build websites. We were very proud to recently launch the website for the house that she built. That is a project that's being completed by the Utah Professional Women in Building chapter. They are building a home completely built by women and then selling that home for scholarship dollars, charity dollars that they're going to be giving away. And we were honored to build that website and donate that to that charity. You can check out our portfolio of websites on our website. We also do social media, we do SEO, SEM, and of course, we do online sales consulting. Now, important, please note, the June Builder Town Hall is moving 1 week. Normally, Builder Town Hall is the first Tuesday of the month, but that's going to fall on the day after Memorial Day. And I'm worried most of you will have your toes in the sand somewhere, sipping a frozen beverage. Hopefully, I hope that for you. So we're going to move it 1 week to the second Tuesday, just for June. So that would be on June 8th. We're going to have 2 really awesome segments. We're going to do part 2 of my fantastic marketing tips. I'm going to do part 1 today, and then we're going to do part 2 on June 8th. And then I've got a very special interview coming up with Jen Barkin of Do You Convert? She posted something on social media the other day that was so profound and interesting and made my mind go, yes, and I've got to know more. That I immediately messaged her on Facebook and said, this post needs to be discussed on Builder Town Hall, and she agreed. So look forward to that on June the 8th. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. I'm going to do a few minutes with my fantastic marketing tips that I promised you, and then we're going to get right to our builder panel of experts who are standing by and ready to help you understand the broader, bigger picture perspective from the leadership level of what it's like to lead an organization during this unprecedented times. Most of you on this call work at the sales and marketing level. You're on-site sales, you're online sales, you're a marketing professional. we do have sales and marketing leadership levels, management levels, and we do have a few builder owners on the call, a couple of which are on the panel today, but we don't necessarily always have leadership on the call. So I thought, wouldn't it be amazing? And Angela and Kerry were so instrumental in putting this together today. We thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to bring in that leadership level to give you the perspective of what they're thinking, so that you can kind of understand, why are we doing things this way right now? So that's coming up in just a few minutes. Okay, let's start with my fantastic marketing tips. You ready? You got your pen ready? You gonna take some notes? I hope so. Okay, has anybody else noticed an uptick in social media rage? I mean, not just about politics, not just about coronavirus and masks, yay, nay, vaccinations, yes, no. I mean, I'm not talking about rage about things that typically are controversial. I'm talking about rage about things that we should be able to agree on, like simple little things. Quite frankly, over the many years that we've managed social media for builders, let's say, for example, at any given time, if we're managing 20 Facebook, Instagram, Twitter accounts, 20 different builders, let's just say, I can tell you, over many years, I can honestly tell you, in a normal market, 19 of those 20 typically would not have very many negative comments at all. There is typically one, and don't worry, I'm not going to name any names or embarrass anybody, but out of 20, there is typically one that always has negative comments. We'll take over that account, and within a short amount of time, there's the comment. And you can see a trend in the comments. It's typically over the same issue over and over again. There's a pattern. And on the monthly calls, we'll go over that. And I might suggest, I think we might need to do some training to this issue. A lot of times it falls on deaf ears because it's a legacy issue. It's been going on a long time. And that's why there's consistent, repeated complaints about it. But typically, out of 20, there's only one. Today, out of 20, because people are just so irritated, and there's a more crass way to put it, but we'll stay professional. Out of 20, I'd say 18 are all getting negative comments. They're all getting just, these prices are too high. Local people can't afford these homes anymore. You've got to be kidding me. Just like literally getting trolled on a daily basis. So we've seen a massive uptick. So much so that I'm seeing a lot more articles, research studies on how to handle it, what to do with it. So I thought it was worth sharing. I'd be interested, I'm gonna break eye contact with you from looking in the camera for a second and look over at chat. Let me throw out the question, do you agree? Are you seeing an uptick in the negative trolling, even though maybe you're one of those businesses, one of those builders that normally doesn't get a lot of complaints? Okay, let's see. Yup. Oh, yes. Oh, okay. Let's see. What are you definitely seeing an uptick? Oh, good for you. I see not really. Okay, that's good. Oh, yes. You're seeing things like builders are greedy, just like blanket statements, right? Sure. Even when it has nothing to do with building, you're getting weird comments about mask mandates. Hello? Does my office say governor on it? Nope. Yeah. Okay. So this is something I thought we'd deal with today. Then in part 2 of this next month, I'm going to talk about what would be some marketing messages you could put out there. We're going to talk today about how do you deal with these? What is the appropriate response? Then in part 2 next week, we're going to talk about there might be things you're putting into your current messaging, whether it's your social media posts, your paid digital ads, your website copy. You might be accidentally fueling some of this. It's just taking those marketing messages off of autopilot and kind of thinking them through. And I want to give you some examples of things you can do to do it right. Okay. So first up today, how do we handle these things? Well, I want to call your attention, first of all, did you know that there is a national rage study? Angela's going to put into the comments a link to the 2020 National Consumer Rage Study. This problem is so bad that literally there has been a study done on consumer rage. And the study found that consumers preferred 3 times as much to vent digitally. In the last 3 years, their preference to vent in a digital way has gone up 3 times as much. What? Yeah. We know that 80% of people rely on online reviews as over a trusted friend's referral. And we know that 50% or more rely on social media to gauge whether they want to interact with a brand. Wow. So this consumer rage thing, it's real. So here's what I want to say. If you are getting the same comments over and over again, where you can establish a pattern, and they are comments from customers, this is the biggest differentiating line we need to make. Do you just have trolls who are just irritated and raging because they're in lockdown and they're quarantined and they're tired and they're irritated because they have to wear a mask and whatever? Or are these customer comments? And is there a pattern there that could be established? If there's a pattern that can be established, you have a customer service issue that needs to be addressed. Okay, so that's the dividing line. Now, there's a new study out by Harvard Business Journal recently published an article with a new study out. And Angela's going to put the link to this in the chat. This is the Harvard Business Review. And this is a great article. And I've got several tips out of this article. In this study, they did a large scale analysis of Twitter traffic. Okay. Thousands of tweets, and they analyzed them. And they looked at companies like McDonald's, Delta Airlines, big consumer companies. And they broke it down and came up with 3 basic recommendations on when you should respond and engage on negative comments, when not to, etc. So here are your tips. Number 1, when you do respond publicly, when you feed the trolls. Now, again, we're separating between trolls. These are people you are not currently engaged in doing business with, so non-customers. These are random comments like, local people can't buy these houses anymore. These are too expensive. And you look that name up in your CRM and you have no record of ever receiving a lead from this person, of ever writing a contract with this person. This is not a prospect or a customer. So they're just trolling you. And if you feed the troll and debate back and forth, there will be a dramatic drop in the perception of the value of your brand and the quality of your brand. And that back and forth When they analyzed the Twitter traffic, what they found was it drowned out all of the good that it did. And if you read the article, it lists several major brands that go back and forth publicly. And they found it was a detriment to the brand. So my first tip is, number one, you've got to do the due diligence. Who's ever monitoring the social media, we need to know the difference between, is it a troll that you are not currently engaged with, either as a prospect or a customer? Which is it? Okay. We don't want to feed the trolls. Number two, the brands that completely ignored. The problem here is if you ignore everybody, if you ignore the trolls and you ignore your current customers and or prospective customers, and you don't address them. And we've had clients that take this approach. They ignore all comments, all of them. What happens is it becomes a breeding ground, because then basically the inmates have taken over the asylum. That's what I call it. Because what happens is the trolls can see on your page that it's open forum. Nobody's going to respond, so we can have at it. And bullies like nothing more than to run rampant. So there has to be some kind of happy medium between back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and completely ignoring it all and letting it run rampant. So we don't want to do that either. So what do we want to do? Okay, we want to respond to customers only and prospective customers. We do want to respond. That's what the research study found of these thousands and thousands and thousands of tweets. However, there's a very specific way that you want to respond. The way that you want to respond is to respond publicly to them and invite them to a private conversation. So you want to respond publicly, and it's very important that this be done timely, very quick, very timely, with empathy, without agreeing to their complaint. You don't have to own their complaint. You don't have to say you're sorry. Don't agree to anything that we're deeply sorry for. No, you are simply acknowledging that we've received your concern and that you want, how can they speak privately? How can you speak privately? Okay. So we want you to respond publicly and give them the offer to continue the conversation in a private channel. So my next tip for you is, here's what you need to develop coming out of today. What is your private channel strategy? Are you going to simply invite them to direct message you on that social media platform? Well, who's checking the direct messages? Because I'm terrible about checking my Facebook direct messages, my Twitter direct messages. I forget all the time. So I'm just making sure, is someone checking those for you? Is that going to be a solid method for you? If it's not, then that's not a good strategy for you. This Harvard article will give you more suggestions. For example, I believe it was McDonald's or it was Delta that invited you to go to fill out an online form in a private channel. That doesn't feel too high touch to me. I'm not loving that, but that was their process. That's their private channel process to get a conversation going. Okay. Do you want to offer them a manager's name and phone number? Say, we would love to, we would love, because we don't really love it, but we understand that you have a concern. Please reach out to ... at ... and they will continue this conversation. So do you want to offer a manager's name and phone number? What is your private channel strategy to move them from here to here? Now, what's important is that even with this strategy, you do not want to go back and forth in inviting them to a private channel discussion, because they may want to just keep going. You only want to offer this up to 2 times. And I get that suggestion from Jay Baer's book, and I've recommended this to you all so many times. Angela's got the link. She's going to put it in chat for us. It's Hug Your Haters. This is the best book, period, bar none, on handling negative social media reviews. Hug Your Haters. So you can order it on Amazon if you want to learn more. He refers to it as moving people from on stage. That's what he's calling an on-stage troll. On stage is when they're on Twitter blasting the world about how terrible you are. You're moving them from an on-stage complaint to an off-stage private complaint. So that's his recommendation is you only go back and forth to invite them to the private conversation up to 2 times. So what do you do with the rest? Here's the last thing. All of those trolls that are saying things, ridiculous things. Well, why did you knock down all the trees? Well, I don't even think that that doesn't even look like that. I hate that stone. Whatever. And again, they're not prospective customers or customers. Simply hide all of those comments. I do not believe or think that you need to let those run rampant on your page. Because again, the more you let those ride, the more it looks like the inmates are running the asylum, and the more the bullies will continue to press all of your buttons. There's just no need for that. We don't, though, want to just hide and block your customers and prospective customers, because ultimately you will come out looking more professional and better if you take the time to go ahead and acknowledge them and show a very professional, empathetic response without owning the problem. You'll come out looking ahead and they'll come out looking irrational. Okay. All right. So those are my tips, fantastic marketing tips for today. I'm going to go ahead and let our panel start coming on. And while they are queuing up for our next segment, I'm going to glance over to the chat and the questions, just making sure that, is there anything else? Yeah, Heidi, Jay Baer does have a great podcast. His site is convinceandconvert.com, and you can learn a lot about anything digital marketing, social media from him. Tara, you had a guy complain because we always show homes with furniture in it. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? All right. Welcome, panel. Let's do a quick mic check. Everybody say hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
All right. I love it when a plan comes together. No, that's the A team. That's not Star Wars, is it? No,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, everybody in Town Hall, let's give a huge Town Hall welcome to Brent Campbell. Let me get this right. Corporate Vice President of Sales, Mungo Homes.
That's right.
Right?
Hey, everybody.
Hey, we've got Kevin McNulty, President, Lifestyle Home Builders out of Richmond, Virginia.
Hello.
Karen Schroeder, co-owner of Mayberry Homes.
Hi.
Hey, and Scott McLellan, Senior Vice President, Plaza Corp out of Toronto.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. So as I explained earlier, our goal for this segment was to have a leadership panel give our sales and marketing troops some insights from the executive level of what it has been like of leading a building organization during these tumultuous times, because this is crazy. Kevin, I'm going to kick it off with you. We know each other really well. You, me, and Kerry work together on a regular basis. And I know from our work together that you all have put in place the sales caps. You're limiting how many sales per month that you're writing. Help our sales folks and marketing folks that are listening in understand, how do you come to that decision? What goes into the decision of how many you're going to write? Kind of from a leader's perspective, how does that process work?
Sure. So I think it's important to point out that we have to remember in this business that we're both a retailer and a manufacturer. And so we have to produce what we sell, and we have to be able to produce it profitably, right? That's another key element. And it's also important to remember that for most of us that have been in this, even for decades, we've never seen an environment where we've been outselling our production capacity with such, I will call it ease, right? It's been very hard to throttle that. And so when we started going into actually just doing hard caps or limits on the number of homes we were willing to accept contracts on during a certain period, it's because we were outstripping our capacity. And so we start looking at things like, what is our current backlog of sales already on the books? How long is it currently taking to get through the pre-start process, which in most markets has gotten longer because of code officials, permit reviewers working from home, some disconnected and disjointed things going on within the municipalities. What is the cost environment? If you can sell a home today and your pre-start timeline has gotten longer, but costs are in a fairly stable environment, you're not as worried about it. But with costs being extremely volatile, you sell it today and can't start it for 3 or 4 months. As costs continue to rise, that starts eating into the profitability part of the business. That is a problem. And then along with that, as we all know, we have material supply constraints, not just the price of them, but getting them on the ground. Labor is stretched to and past capacity. So the timeline to actually build the house is lengthening out. And then we're all chewing through our lots faster than we had anticipated. And so you're trying to balance the need for sales, because as the owner, as much as salespeople want to sell, you can believe the owners of the company and the executives want sales, because without sales, we're done. But we have to be able to marry the pace of those with our ability to stand behind the product and bring it to the market.
Yeah. So Brent, that begs the question, when you've got a sales team that feels maybe a little throttled, they get what Kevin's saying. I'm sure they get it. And they understand those things intellectually, but they're wired to sell. I'm a marketer. I'm wired to generate leads. And then we're kind of being told to tamp that down. How do you keep a sales team motivated? What kind of things are you all doing at Mungo Homes with your teams to try to keep them motivated and understand that they're still a very important part of the process?
Yeah, racehorses want to run, right? So
yeah.
And to Kevin's point, we needed to keep things in perspective to make sure that we could feed the machine appropriately, but not overburden, the rest of our entire company. But, it's been difficult, quite frankly. I think it would be a little easier if we didn't have to deal with the COVID restrictions and all that stuff as well. But, we've tried to do happy hours, Zoom happy hours. And we've had some teams that got creative and they shipped the favorite beverage of the person via this service, the alcohol delivery service, to the new home advisor's doorstep. And then they had that, and they had trivia night. And we've done just a lot of different things to try to keep folks engaged and focusing on the customer and our closings goal, and shifting from that sales goal over to the closings goal.
Mm-hmm. Karen, I know at Mayberry Homes, you're experiencing some of these same exact struggles as all of our town hall members are, with
Right.
unbelievable demand and material shortage and increases. What are some of the things you've done to address those challenges?
Well, keep in mind, we're in East Lansing, Michigan, so we're always a little bit behind the times. When things go bad, we usually get it first. And when they get good, doesn't get good right away for us, but we still keep plugging away. We have not shut down sales. I won't do that. When the governor shut us down, we were one of, I believe, 3 states that was not deemed essential service. And so she shut us down with houses completed, waiting for C of Os, that kind of stuff. We were able to get a PPP loan, which helped us keep everybody whole until we could open back up again. It was critically important. I didn't want to lose anybody. In that process, we stayed in contact with our vendors and our contractors and kept feeding them the information that we were getting. We were writing contracts via Zoom. We were still plugging away, and we were moving forward so that, 2 months later, when she let us get back to work, we were able to continue and complete. We were 2 months behind. Now, as you all know, pricing started going crazy right around the same time. I can tell you that just this year to date, we've had to raise prices 8%. So here we've got contracts, 60 days to field, perhaps. My pricing is no longer valid. So for the first time ever, I had to rewrite my contract. I had to address the fact that due to the pandemic and due to lumber and due to some of this stuff, we can no longer guarantee pricing the day that we sign that contract. So if the customer is not able to meet their requirements within 60 days, I'm talking about full deposits, selections, mortgage approval, good to go. If they can do that, then I'll lock their price and move forward. But if they're vulnerable at that 60-day point, I have had to go back to people. I've never in my life had to go back to people. Surprisingly enough, they've understood. Fortunately, I'm not a big fan of the media, but fortunately, they can't help but know what's going on with lumber and appliances and siding and windows. We're ordering supplies before we even get to estimating. We're just ordering supplies, so at least by the time we're ready for it, we'll get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking to my network of national builders through NAHB. I'm talking to them saying, how are you handling it? What are you doing? Because we want to try to continue to move forward and stay on the ball. My goal is to continue doing business and meeting the needs of the homeowners and the customers, but also meeting the needs of my staff. And it's been a balancing act.
I think I was just going to say, I think one of the things that helps the sales team, it's not alcohol, like Brent said. I think that's a good idea that maybe we need to start utilizing. But the other piece of it is educating them on, we call it the business of building. And we try in our weekly sales meetings to share with the salespeople on our team the reasons behind the decisions. And we're not just handing out mandates of this is what we're doing, now go and do it. It's let's talk about why we're having to do this, and then maybe when we can adjust it, and
Right.
and having buy-in that way. So,
Right. That's a good point, Kevin. And I think more often than not, when I'm up against the wall feeling like, oh my God, I got to throw in another price increase, or I got to go back to a customer, I'm not thinking, hey, I need to sit down with sales and explain to them, show them, here's my price increases, guys. Because all of a sudden I've become the enemy. And I don't want to do that. I don't like that feeling at all. It's not who I am.
Scott, I know in Toronto, you have quite a different scenario than we do here in the States. You're still very much in the thick of battling COVID in terms of your restrictions. You're not really, you guys haven't really reopened very much.
Absolutely true. And what's really bizarre about the last year in our Toronto market, primarily deals in high-rise condominiums in the greater Toronto area. So the average size of one of our projects will be somewhere around 500 units and somewhere between 4 have been there for us, and they've been there for our industry, quite frankly. One of the, with social distancing, with government restrictions in terms of not allowing our sales offices and our sales centers to be open throughout the city, we've really had to rely on technology. We just opened a project up in the downtown core in the entertainment district of Toronto, probably, you know, center ice, if you will, of high density housing. We released 600 suites in a 50-story tower. We've sold about 70% of them, and every deal that we did was through DocuSign. And our whole marketing campaign was driven through the realtor community, through electronic marketing, social media, website marketing, which has been something completely different. Yes, we still had to bring in people on by appointment only to work with our sales teams and our sales representatives. One of the things that we're up against in the condo business is we have a very limited time to get our pre-sales done. So we know that if we're in a really difficult situation, we have to get 70% of our revenue sold. We have to do it in a certain time so that we can meet our financing mechanisms with our construction lenders. Most importantly, we're against the clock because we also have to secure our trades. Farming trades, for example, there are only so many of them in the greater Toronto area. And we have a schedule. So we'll sit down with those trades and we'll talk about the fact that we will be ready in a year. Our consultants will have our drawings ready in a year. And then we have to have our salespeople go out and understand it and work with the different selling avenues that are given to them to sort of make it happen. And that's been very challenging to do that when you actually can't have people that are going to come into your sales office and touch and feel and get feel the appliance package and take a look at the kitchens and take a look at all the features and finishes that we would not normally have in our office, and try and do it virtually has been one heck of a challenge. But it's worked. I guess everybody understands in this world, particularly when it comes to the Toronto market, that when COVID goes away, there is going to be a pent-up demand for real estate. There's going to be a pent-up demand for urban living that's close to places of business, and certainly area amenities like restaurants and subways and all the things that urban centers have to offer. So those have certainly been some of the challenges that we've had. And somehow the residential real estate market has maintained resiliency. And I know it's the same everywhere. And to Kevin's point, one of the things that we certainly try and do in our organization is not have people work in silos. We want our sales representatives to be as educated as the top executives in our company in terms of what our goals are. And we're happy to pass that information on to our purchasers, because eventually our purchasers become our partners. We're dealing with them for 3 and 4 years on a condominium project. They truly become our partners. And we think it's very, very important to try and share as much of that information as we can with our purchasers, our employees. And it makes for, I'm convinced and always have been that it makes for a much stronger brand.
One of the reasons that I was so excited for Scott to participate on our panel today was I think we may have been under a bit of a misconception about urban living. You know, we've seen such a flight out of our big cities, and we've seen such migration patterns here in the States. And I wonder if maybe we've been making some wrong assumptions about why people have left those cities. Maybe it wasn't the type of housing they were leaving, but maybe it was some of the policies they were living under through their government, their local governments or state governments that they found to be onerous that they were leaving. And I'll leave that right there and I won't keep going, but I found Scott's story interesting because Scott, I missed it a little bit because you said you sold how many in this recent project in how many days? Say that again.
So in about a month's period.
In a month's period of time, you sold how many?
We're about 70% through our units and about 75% through our revenue.
Yeah, but how many units is that?
600, and we're somewhere in the 450 to 470 range. There's a number of suites that are still in rescission, which here means a 10-day cooling off period to peruse your condominium documentation, have a lawyer sign off on the documentation, and we insist on all of our purchasers coming back with a financial certificate saying and making sure that they can close in 4 years from now. So there's always
right.
that.
I get it. But we're talking, but I just want to make sure town hall, you're hearing correctly, 600 units in 30 days in downtown Toronto, where there are still as strict of COVID restrictions and really no rollout of vaccine yet as possible. And the sales are as hot as they possibly can be. And this was all done virtually.
And Meredith, you also have to understand that's a pre-sale. We don't build.
That's a pre-sale, right, of a high-rise condominium project.
We can't.
I'm sorry, but I found this story fascinating, right? Right. So I wanted that to be heard today because I think we may have made some assumptions about that type of lifestyle that may be erroneous. I don't know. Let's just keep processing that through and thinking about that. But all types of sales are welcomed and encouraged, right? Of all kinds of housing. But it's just interesting, Scott. I loved hearing about that. And I love, getting to share that with everybody. Kevin, at Lifestyle, you guys have a way, you have a very clear culture, vision and mission that I know Kerry has worked very hard with you guys, coaching you guys and creating with you all as a team. You've embedded it into your sales team, into every member of your organization. And you use it when you are working with unhappy customers, which I know there aren't very many of with Lifestyle, but occasionally when somebody gets a ruffled feather here or there, I know that you often address those yourself and that you use those core mission and vision principles in your conversation. So tell us about how you do that.
Well, I can think of two examples in the fairly recent past. One is kind of more of a day-to-day, just everyday life, but addressing the circumstances for all of our customers under construction so that they could hear from me personally, which is not possible to do. And really, even in today's world in any other way than to old-fashioned sit down, write a letter, explain what's going on.
Letter, okay.
Yeah. And so one of our core values is built around transparency as it relates to integrity. And so we just wanted to be transparent with our customer base and tell them, even though they're watching the news and absorbing all of what's going on, from our perspective, what's going on, explain the implications of that and what they were going to need to be flexible with and to deal with, and to just tell them that if that didn't work for them, we were being upfront and honest with the situation, and that if they couldn't stay in the contract, or needed some other accommodation, to let us know specifically what that was, so that if there was a way we could address it, we would. And if not, we could allow them to move on and find another situation that would suit them better. We communicated that back in March, and it largely went unanswered in terms of I think people appreciated the honesty and the transparency of us communicating that. The second example that I have is one where I actually personally addressed a customer. We had somebody that I think fell into that category that you were describing in the beginning of the meeting, with just a lot of angst and pent up frustration and anger, probably at a lot of things, but a lot of it was pouring out in our direction as we were building their home. And a lot of that was coming to a head. And we actually had a meeting with the customer and the realtor at our office last evening, and sat and talked about with them what our core values are and why we needed to adjust how the communication was happening between them and us in order for us to finish their project well. And I think when we were done with that we left with a better understanding of how we needed to move forward. Time will prove that out, right? But we did clearly bring out what are our core values and how are we expecting this to go, in contrast with how things are being handled and have been handled up until this point.
Mm-hmm. I know, Karen, one of the core values and one of the most important things, something you've worked really hard on at Mayberry Homes, has been workforce development. That's a passion of yours, something that you've always worked hard in, and through your leadership at NAHB and Professional Women in Building. I mean, this has been an area you focused on. How is workforce development and bringing up people through trades, how has that helped you through this difficult time? And, how does that relate to our current environment?
We have been so fortunate. When we started our company in 2002, we had already established a pretty strong trade group, because my business partner, Bob, had come from a family-owned home building company and established relationships with the trades at that point. And they came on board pretty much immediately. I mean, yeah, there's some, tweaking and fine tuning, but all in all, they came on board with us. And it's been 20 years. Now, we all recognize in 2008, we kind of lost a generation of trades, especially in my market, because it went family-owned trades. It was the framers had their grandfather and their grandsons on the same crews. So these trades stayed with us. And one of the biggest things that the way I benefited from that, I mean, obviously what I always tried to do was pay bills. I mean, these guys get burned by people left and right. So if nothing else, if I can pay their bills when they come due and value them and bring them into the loop. Hey, we're starting a new development. We're going to need this, 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 and this. Are you on? Yes, we have had to reach out and try new people and train new trades. But all in all, I think the feather in our hat was the fact that we've had the same guys and we've just groomed them, and they've been they're true business partners of ours. They've moved forward with us. And when there's issues, we try to work it out with them. We've met new guys, we've brought them on board because we grew and needed more than, one or two crews for framers and things like that. But we've been very, very fortunate in that regard. So we pay our bills and we keep them in the loop, and make them feel like they're part of the Mayberry team. And I think that that's all been beneficial.
So
and
they
then
work-
we're really involved with the university, and that's always between the university and Lansing Community College and then the trade schools. You can't go wrong. You always have to keep regenerating, new blood. But for the most part, we've been really fortunate.
Yeah. So they're loyal to you. And when you need them to work, say faster, we need more. They'll do it for you. They'll do it. Yeah. They take care of you. Brent, with our sales teams, kind of pivoting back to our sales teams, what does good performance look like right now? And what does poor performance look like right now? Because typically we've always judged sales performance on how many appointments have you set up for this week? How many second appointments did you set up? How many contracts did you write? How many phone call outreach? How many realtor drop-offs? All of the activities that lead to sales. And then how many sales did you make? Well, that's not the environment we're in. So what does both positive and negative sales performance look like right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of folks in our company, but also in our industry that are getting spoiled right now, and they're developed or have learned some very, very bad habits. And that's really what we are trying to focus on, is some of the blocking and tackling, as we call it for a football reference, that they need to do to have good CRM hygiene, to make sure that, these leads that we're meeting and we're talking to now about future sales opportunity, we can leverage the tools in our CRM to reach back out to them appropriately. And just some of the basics of customer communication. That's really what our team is, the front line, and just being creative and open and honest, like we've heard today with the rest of the panel, with our buyers, and keeping them engaged and focused on being available to answer their questions, and also to be transparent about what's going on with our industry. As far as the CRM hygiene, I can't stress that enough. Use it now, because when the market tightens up, you're going to wish you had it. So I've been there, done that, recession times.
We've had a couple of questions come in. One question, Scott, somebody asked, what is the name of your project in Toronto that we were talking about that's had good sales results?
Right now, we have 9 projects in various stages. The one that I was talking about was a project called 400 King West. 400 King West. Like I said, it's right in the downtown, right in our entertainment district, short walking distance from our central business district as well. So it's right in the heart of the downtown core.
All right. Karen, Ingrid asked, have you had any issues with getting customers through your design center and keeping them on schedule, getting them through the design process with, having more sales and a higher pace of sales?
No, it's obviously by appointment only. And I have, we stuck by the rules. When the governor said, okay, you can open, but we took notes, and I made sure that we dotted all our I's and crossed all our T's. So people get their temp taken and sign in before they walk into my office. They go directly to the design center. And at that time, we're kind of relaxing a little bit, but at the time that all was going on, there could be no other customers in the office running appointments elsewhere at first. We really needed to figure out how we do business now, because everything was different. So we've got a design coordinator who just, makes appointments, brings them in, does their design appointment and leave. I will mention, it's been interesting. I'm in a unique situation right now. As you know, I said I was staying in Arizona for the winter. I'm currently building a house with another builder here in Arizona. And that's kind of an experience, being a builder and having a big company at home and having to work with someone else's rules. And I was just dealing with my countertop selection this morning. And we're sitting here talking about the changes and how things are different. And I'm like pulling my hair out here thinking, I wonder if my customers feel this way. And it's not like they're doing anything wrong. They don't want me marching into the design center at any given time and going through their samples. I get it. But they don't want to meet with me either. They've got other people coming in. So I'm kind of struggling. So there's been a lot of that's been eye-opening. And, there's some really good ways of doing business that I'm going to take home and implement at home. It's always healthy to kind of check out another builder in another area to find out what they're doing.
Yeah. As we wrap up this segment, each of you, one thing that you want our sales and marketing folks to know from a leadership perspective that you think would be helpful? Just something we haven't touched on, or maybe we have, but you want to reiterate it, something that just can, help them be more successful in the current environment.
I think communicating with the buyers, not only your salespeople. I mean, your salespeople have got to know what's going on. They have to be in the loop. They need to see, hey, I have to raise these prices because I just got hit with this, and this. So they don't think I'm just raising the prices and putting it in my pocket. That's the first thing. But then educate your buyers. Once your buyer understands what you're dealing with, they're more apt to work with you. That's my 2 cents.
So go ahead.
Hey, Kerry, hang on one second. Let the panel wrap up their points.
Okay.
And then we'll let you guys jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's so important right now to keep your own individual emotional bank account full, because the industry, our customers, the decisions we're having to make as a company, that's drawing on your emotional bank account. And so spend time to get that refilled as much as you possibly can, because it's going to better arm you to better serve those that are, internal customers and external customers that we have.
And that's what we're doing every month right here, right? That's what Builder Town Hall is all about. And all of the other awesome resources in the industry. You've got so many good podcasts and webinars that are completely complimentary that you can tap into. Scott, how about you?
I know we've touched on this, and I think everybody on the panel has basically touched on this, but in my 30 years that I've been in the industry, I don't know that I've ever seen a time where we have been completely held hostage by costs. And a lot of times that's not really anyone's fault. It's our people that make our faucets that have had slowdowns in their warehouses. Certainly transportation issues. Social distancing on construction sites where you can't have as many people bringing materials up to the 30th floor during the construction process. That all leads to greater costs, and sadly those have to be put onto the price of your homes. And for us to maintain any kind of a financeable bottom line, and I think we all have that challenge in our industry, those are the things that are really driving price changes, that are really slowing down the process in a lot of situations. And people have talked about that communication with your salespeople and your purchasers, and that's paramount to the success that we're all going to have. And it certainly is. The more we communicate and explain those types of challenges that we have, I think the better we're going to be as an industry. And it sounds like everybody on this panel certainly committed to that. So I don't think that we're any different, and I don't think that any market in North America would be any different.
Kevin, how about you?
So I think my closing comment is just to remember that this is a team sport, and we'll succeed together, even while we're calling some audibles, right? Like, we've not seen some of these conditions before, and we're trying to understand how to adjust the game to come out with a win. And if everybody's focused on that, we'll be just fine.
Yes, we will. All right, we're going to say goodbye to our builder panel. Thank you all so much. We appreciate your time, energy, contribution for all of that. And we're going to stay on with Angela and Kerry for our rock star panel wrap up and have you all tell us what you heard. Give us your takeaways, your ahas, your to-dos. Kerry, let her rip. You've got your Yoda t-shirt on there. I see. And I see in the background, you've got some of Cade's Star Wars items. I've got some of Brady's Star Wars items in my background. What did you learn?
It cost $118 to build, only in
Right?
Disney. You go.
Right. Mine too. Mine too. So, so tell me, what did you learn today?
It was, perspective is always great, isn't it? Sometimes you want to think a little bit on this, misery loves company, because you really just want to hear that, okay, I'm better now because everyone else is bad with me. Right? But interesting. And, I always just rattle a few off. So I'm just going to go into my rattle mode that I loved when Kevin talked about the why and the business of building. And he does do that with his sales teams so that they understand prior to building cost increase, which is what he calls them instead of price increases, it's a cost increase, is that they're aware and they know the business side of it. So I like that a lot. Brent, I love that he thought he should reward salespeople with activities because yes, us poor salespeople in the trenches. But I really like the analogy that he had blocking and tackling and Kevin had audibles. And that just tells us we're in a volatile market. So the sports team lived on. Good CRM, good hygiene. Oh, like
I have a webinar. I have a new webinar brewing right in my mind, here, yes. Coming to maybe Lasso near you. I will be emailing Monica shortly after this.
Right. And Karen talked about communication, and then I reiterated that her communication just goes on like forever, early and ongoing. Hi.
Keep going.
So I just think, and Ann, you jump in with me because you're like the communicator, that it's great. And then, Scott just talked about the technology side. I mean, wow, who can even imagine those numbers? But I think that his point was that whatever we were and whatever we are, we're going to be something in the middle of all that as well. So you go, Ann, what'd you get?
Well, Scott used the word resilience. And I think, my gosh, haven't we all been resilient this past year?
We're still here.
We're here and we get through the days, we get through the months, we've gotten through the year, right? And we tackle those problems. We are resilient. So I love that word and I don't think we should forget it. What each of the panelists talked about was obviously communication and transparency, but we talk about transparency with the buyer. But as Kevin said it, and Karen, and in fact, and everyone said it was it starts internally, but not just with our internal sales teams, but everybody. They need to understand why. They need to understand because then they can educate the buyer. But it also with our trades as well. To Karen's point, she has always kept open communication, and isn't it like often so much angst and confusion is due to communication. So that's what it all boils down to, really, in my opinion. But Meredith, also, don't feed the troll and hide the troll. Those are the two. I'm not going to forget that.
Yeah.
But to you, Meredith, I also, social media rage, it's like bring it out of the closet because it's there. Because individually, different builders are thinking, oh my God, I have to get this Mr. or Mrs. Icky off my page quick. And we all kind of have those kinds of things. But we've said this before on a builder town hall before with salespeople and autopilot on their CRM system. So this will go in with CRM hygiene, is that until you've checked all your autopilot messages that are going out, do it manually, because you might be sending a wrong message to somebody. And I loved when you talked about turning that off, you know, and your private channel strategy. Everybody, you know, you need a takeaway when you leave somewhere. What behind, what do you have that's going that? I just think it's valuable. And Ange, as always, the communication thing and the transparency thing to pull this out, because if it's behind closed doors, it's not ever taken as a good thing. When you bring out what goes on behind closed doors to transparency, now you have the business side of life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if this has ever been a time to understand your core values as an organization and to talk about them, Kevin brought that up, and it's hugely important. And it also breeds loyalty. I mean, we're in a state where kind of, you know, a lot of builders and a lot of us are in precarious positions with, you know, there's a lot of change happening. There's churn internally within organizations, and we need to foster that loyalty.
I just did a virtual sales rally for a team, actually in Toronto, different organization than Scott's that was on today. But we spent the entire sales rally on communication skills. Because to me, Brent nailed it. And I didn't know that was going to be his answer. I just asked him the question. But to me, that is the skill of our time for salespeople.
Correct.
Is that, you know, we've always said in marriage, if you wanted to stay married or with a partner, whatever, you know, communication skills were everything. Well, in this environment, in new home sales, this is all about communication skills, period. This isn't about closing skills, negotiating skills, objection handling skills. I mean, I guess it could depend on your market. Some of the markets that are a little softer, where you're still working for the sales, and there's some markets like that. But most of the markets where we've got open bids and lotteries and sales caps, the sales skills aren't the thing. It's the communication skills.
Right. And remember on one of our town halls, you guys, where we talked about, it's easy to say communication skills, but then people internalize, what are those?
What are those?
And
right.
We talked about whatever they are, they need to be timely, meaningful, and sequential. Because you can't, okay, I communicated with that person, then drop them and pick up another one. And I communicated with them. It's not like take care of the hit list. It's ongoing, right?
Random squirrel communication. That's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. Yeah. So, all right, as we kind of bring this together, everybody
stayed on a long time today.
They did. And I know it's super tempting when we start to do this wrap up piece for people to jump. And I know that some people have a hard stop at the end of an hour, but to me, when you listening to information and ideas is one thing, but this segment of how you take it, and then the 3 or 4 of us, when Matt can be with us, when we help you distill it and apply it, this is where the money is, folks. Yeah. And usually I can't, because we're so packed with content, because I'm an overthinker and over planner, I can't usually do this section till 5 to 5:15. So if you can plan to be with us from 5 to 5:15, this is the money segment right here. Because here's where we're going to give you your do this, do that. But the idea of the private channel strategy is just really important, because that has to work like butter on a hot roll. Like it has to. So once you move somebody, they've got to be able to get a hold of somebody immediately, and that person has to be very professional, not necessarily owning the problem or saying we're going to give you the world, but has to be your best problem solver with empathy, professional person you've got on the team that can handle difficult, angry people.
Yes. And to your point, and then Ange, you jump in, that person needs to be able to neutralize.
Neutralize.
Because that you got to get it to here before you can, that's just it. Yeah. Right, Ange?
I totally agree. And I think, sometimes the buyer, the consumer, just wants acknowledgement. They, they just want acknowledgement. And so it's, it's how you communicate that and how you, I will share a quick story. My cell phone provider, who nobody likes their cell phone provider, had a major national outage a couple of weeks ago. There was Twitter, there was tweets, there was Facebook posts, there was all sorts of stuff as you would expect. I have not received one piece of communication from them to acknowledge what happened. There's been news articles, there's been lots of things, but nothing personally one-to-one. I am their customer. And so I just thought, let that sink in. Like it's acknowledgement of, mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. There are issues that happen.
Really quickly on that point, I think, because the panel also talked about this, Kevin did with his letter, that I think it's the acknowledgement after, if you need it, but it's the education before. So that if people, because again, it goes to being timely, you guys, that if you let people know, like in a letter, that this is what the world we're living in. So they're not just relying on the news, right? Then all of a sudden it happens, if it does, then the acknowledgement, they can at least acknowledge the fact that you were aware, but you also told me. Preempting, like you got to preempt, which is the same as set expectation, but man, you got to preempt.
All right. So as we wrap up, for those of you that stayed on for the last money segment, we have a surprise. We have a special gift for May the Force be with you. Angela is going to put into the chat. If you don't have a copy of Fantastic Marketing by yours truly, she's going to put a link in the chat for the PDF version, and you are welcome to the complimentary copy of the PDF version. So she's going to do that. If you prefer a paperback version, she'll put the link in for the Amazon to do the paperback.
Right up.
But if you just want a PDF that you can read on your iPad, done. Okay.
It's coming. Just a sec.
All right.
Yeah,
so hang on. So, okay. So there's the.
Oh, sorry. You know what? I think I just sent it only to you, Meredith. Just hold on.
I think you did. You got to send it to everybody.
Yeah. There you go. I got all the other
There you go. All right. So that is yours, because that's really the heart of what we will be doing next month, which is creating messages that will not further create rage and add to the rage that is currently being felt out there. That's what's coming out. It's going to come straight out of my book. So if you want a little primer beforehand, review some of the book. Of course, I'm going to update it because the book's about a year old. But it's going to come right out of some of those ideas in there. So now you've got the primer.
I love this.
Okay. We're going to do that. And that's that. And what else? I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. So just remember, not the first Tuesday of June, second Tuesday of June, June 8th. Okay. Anything else? Angela, Kerry.
I just think that I've never, put the buttons back on.
Okay.
I just really want to compliment everybody, because you have lots of choices on things that you can do. And that this many people are still on this webinar right now to realize that there are always some gold nuggets here and some weird hairdos and some strange skirts and all of that. But darn, aren't we good when we stick together? Yeah. And you are a force to reckon with, Meredith.
Oh, yes, we are. Oh, wait, here's my lightsaber. Here's Brady's lightsaber. I have this too.
Oh, Lord.
Oh my gosh. Well, it was an awesome
time. Out. They're not leaving, and I love it.
I know. Well, Kerry and Angela, you guys helped so much with this month, getting questions written, recruiting panelists. It was amazing. working with you all on this. This was a big event. It's hard to get this many panelists and all this organized, but my buns are, but we did it, and we provided a lot of value. So may the force be with you all on National Star Wars Day in this galaxy and beyond. The recording will be available by tomorrow in our Facebook group. Please share it often with all of your friends. Invite anybody in your organization to join us anytime on Builder Town Hall. Anybody that's a home building industry leader is always welcome with our compliments. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Meredith.